All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thanks for being here this morning. After our presentation, we'll have practice over in the Goog. Make sure you have your credential on you. If you don't, if you forgot it, didn't bring it, we have some blank ones. We can just throw it on so that we can make sure that everybody who's supposed to be in the Goog is in the Goog and you're not a random off the street. But to introduce Coach Balis, he came here in the spring of 2017 and really transformed our program, took us to the next level. He's amazing. He gives it everything he's got every day. Our guys love him. His themed lifts, I'm sure you've seen on social media, the Valentine's Day Massacre and different things like that to get the guys excited. So he's awesome. We're blessed to have him. And please welcome Coach Balis and his staff.
Thank you, Jason. Appreciate you.
Yep.
Guys, welcome. It's an honor to be able to get to talk to you. It's not called the Valentine's Day Massacre, though. It's the Valentine's Day Lift, okay? So, Jason, just please be careful there. But no, seriously, to be able to talk in front of you at Notre Dame is truly an honor for me. And as coaches at the high school level, and if you're, college coaches, I'll tell you what you guys do. I did that for 5 years. I was a high school strength coach. I taught elementary PE, and I absolutely loved what I did. I was blessed to be able to do that. And so I give all the credit to you guys and all the kudos to you guys for doing what you're doing, because that's really the most important job there is. I have a son who's in middle school right now, and every time he tells me that he appreciates a coach or he loves a teacher because of the way he treats them, that's the best for me. It makes me feel so good inside. So please continue doing what you're doing. Take care of those young guys. Help them. There's so few guys that actually make it to our level, and there's so few that go on from there, as you know. And so today's talk is going to be kind of about that, where, yes, we're going to do everything humanly possible to compete at the highest level in football. But we're also going to do everything humanly possible to make sure our guys are ready to take on life and do it the right way with great values and learn how to fight. And that's why the title of this presentation is Fighting Through Adversity to Become a Champion, because really going back to my background, how I grew up, that's what I had to do. And a lot of you guys had tough backgrounds and tough childhoods and adversity that you faced in life with family and in sports. And there's so many things you can learn about life through football and through competition. And the more I've done this, it always goes back to this, is how you deal with adversity mentally. Okay, physically, we're going to talk physical and how we do all that, but the mental aspect of things. And so just, before I get started, my background, as I said, I was a teacher. This is my 7th college. So I've been able to see and work under some incredible strength coaches, some incredible head football coaches, working under head coach Brian Kelly. I learn every day. And none of this can happen in terms of what we do strength conditioning wise if you don't have an incredible head football coach that supports you, that gives you the vision. His vision was, here's what we want, Coach Balis. We want a team that's mentally and physically tough. We want a team that's going to compete every single day, and we want a team that's going to be accountable. That's what he told me when I interviewed with him. I said, Coach, I can do that. I'm your guy. And so a lot of this talk is going to be kind of going back to that, if you can picture that. I also want to make sure I give thanks to our strength staff, 4 of which are here. Coach Robert Steiner, why don't you guys stand up? Coach Ian Burris, Coach Kanan Clark, Coach Eric Wright. These guys do a phenomenal job with our team. They help me, because I certainly can't do this by myself. They're the reason why it's able to happen, this presentation. They help me put together. And then we have 3 other strength coaches, Coach Jake Flint, Coach David Grimes, and Coach Cody. They're over there weighing our team in right now. So we've got a big old staff, and so we're able to do a lot of great things. But we'll get going here. When I put up the first slide, Training with Adversity, there's a book called The Obstacle is the Way. Has anybody read that book yet? The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. I highly recommend you get that book, okay? Because basically, it's a book about all the great guys in history. Thomas Edison, Maximus Aurelius, right? The ultimate warriors, right? Everybody's seen the movie Gladiator. Those guys that were faced with tremendous adversity and were able to embrace all the different kinds of adversity. They didn't look at it as a negative. They didn't look at it as, what are we going to do? They actually enjoyed that. And so this book was all about how to enjoy when challenges come. We call it embrace the pain, okay? So just a couple things I put on there. As you can see, on the left-hand side, okay, is what the book kind of talks about. Emotions, judgment, creativity, attitude, perspective, desires, your decisions, how determined you are. We have a mental performance coach here. I don't know if Coach Kelly talked about her name, Dr. Amber Selking. She does a ton of this stuff with our guys because so much of what we do is not just physical, but more importantly, mental. And then going down that list on the left-hand side, you got to control what you can control. You got to be able to see the good in every situation. Now, to the right of that, those are Coach Kelly's traits of excellence, okay? So what we do is we tie in those traits to what this book talked about. So I want to kind of show you, have a great attitude while training. All right, that's a huge deal for us, the traits. It all starts with attitude. Guys, come in the weight room, no matter what's going on, you got to have a great attitude. If you don't, you're not allowed to work out. You're not allowed to train. We're going to make sure. And it's not a, get out of here, you're gone. It's more of, hey, what do you got going on? Right? Or our leaders, what's up? What's going on in life? Maybe there's something going on. Maybe you just had a child. Maybe you just had someone die. And so we talk to our guys, but you got to have a great attitude, right? Detail. So we talk about attention to detail. We don't want to give them the big picture. We want to give them the details of every movement. That's why it's so important for us to have strength coaches at each area, because each area has a certain goal that they're going through, which we're going to get into, all the different things we do, okay? Laser focus. As you guys know, the younger the student athlete, the younger the guys you're training, the more their focus can be gone. I'll say things like, look at me, give me your eyes, stare at me, give me your attention, all these different things so that they have that when they're going into their training, okay? The grit, obviously grit, effort, the ability to sustain over a long period of time with a great attitude, okay? Be smart in how we recover. Coach, I know talked yesterday about recovery. We do a ton of recovery. As hard as we train, we recover just as hard or even harder, okay? And then obviously emotional control. So Brian Kelly talks about, Coach Kelly, focus, stay in the moment, right? Mental toughness. We get ready to play. So we train these things in the off season, okay? We talk about them, right? Confidence. This is why I train. You always revert back to your training, okay? Motivate yourself. Here at Notre Dame, all right, these are the best of the best. And so I have to be careful sometimes what I give them, because whatever I give them, they're going to go 1,000 miles an hour. I mean, that's just the way the guys are here, and I had to learn that, being at all the different places I've been. These guys, if you tell them, go hard, let's see what you got, that's what they're going to do. Act like you've been there before, okay, calmness, again, emotional control, great habits, all right. A guy that I listened to years ago said, greatness is doing the routine things every day consistently. The routine things. You don't have to be Superman. You just got to do the routine things every single day consistently, okay? The dominant mindset. A dominant mindset isn't just, I'm going to beat you one-on-one, okay? That's not what it is. That's part of it, but it also is, how do I take care of myself? How do I recover? How do I live my life? Do I live my life as a champion over the weekend? What decisions am I making? Am I a good teammate? Am I negative? Am I positive? And then a sense of urgency. All right, this is another area. Guys sometimes just kind of mosey. That's not how we do things. We attack. We attack, we attack, we attack. All right, so this is one that's really huge to me. Years ago when I was at Mississippi State, we started talking to the team about everybody's motivated. You're motivated to be here today, okay? Our players are motivated to go practice. Inspiration comes into play when you run out of motivation, when you really don't feel like getting up, when you really don't feel like going to practice and giving everything you got, going until you almost pass out, going until your body aches all over the place, or going to be a great husband or a great father. You just work 17 hours. You can't see straight, but you still got to go home and play with your children. The inspiration. So we talk to our guys about is, okay, what inspires you? Well, coach, I want to be a great football player. I want to make a lot of money someday. That's not enough. That's not going to do it. I'm just telling you. As a strength coach, what I do is I tell them, yes, I want you to be strong, and I want you to reach the NFL someday. I want you to reach your dreams. But here's the real deal, fellas. This is what inspires me. I want you to be great men. I want you to be men of character. I want you to be warriors. I want you to be guys that when the chips are down, you guys will step up and you'll be great. And you'll do that for your teammates. You'll do that for your family someday. And so that's how we kind of separate motivation versus inspiration. Obviously, everybody heard of these people on the left-hand side. I'm a huge Rocky fan. To me, this quote right here, I have it on my desk, says the whole thing. It's not about how hard you hit. It's about how many hits you can take and keep moving forward. That, to me, is the epitome of life and being a champion. When I first started this business, I got a book called The Edge. Okay, and then I started reading about all the great people in the history of the world. And Abraham Lincoln kept coming up, Abraham Lincoln. And I saw this guy, he had a failed marriage, he had nervous breakdowns, he lost all his elections, yet he goes down as the greatest president that ever, or one of, that ever lived. Oprah Winfrey, raped as a child, had no parents, grew up in Mississippi and had nothing, and becomes one of the most powerful women in the world today. Michael Jordan, I'm a Chicago guy, so I'm a little biased here. But Jordan always talked about, he missed more shots than he made. In fact, my wife and I, when we were in Connecticut, coached our son's basketball team, and that would be our calling. Take shots, take shots, take shots. Doesn't matter how many, you have no idea what you're gonna make. Just take shots and go. Don't be afraid to fail. Myself, growing up in Chicago, was in a single-parent family and a horrendous role model as a father, I unfortunately learned early on that you have to fight. You got to fight, and you have to see the good in things. And you have to always know deep down in your heart that it's going to be okay. Seeing homelessness and food stamps and all these types of things, it makes you tough. It makes you calloused. And so I knew as I got older and older, like that was a good thing. Even though it was really hard at the time, I could go back and tell my guys that are going through hard stuff, just like we all do, it's going to be okay. It's actually making you better. It's actually making you stronger. And so my mentor, who I have under there, Coach Foster, he was that way. He's the head coach at the College of DuPage. And he was the type of guy that would sit and meet with me in my early 20s, and we'd talk about this stuff. And we'd talk about training the kids and making the kids champions and warriors and fighting through all the stuff they were going through. And being able to, while we were strength training them, take these lessons that I'm talking to you about and utilize them in the weight room. And it made for this incredible team. We were able to turn that team around. We were 1-8 at the time. We went to back-to-back semi football championships because of the mindset. Of course, we had good players, but the mindset. We started the early morning training at 6 a.m., and we were giving these messages about how to train to be a winner. And then Jocko Willink, I always like to mention, if you've ever not listened to him, he's a great motivator. He's on YouTube. He does podcasts. He's a former Navy SEAL commander. He has 2 books out now that we absolutely love him. He came to talk to our team. He's a war hero, and now he talks about motivation and pushing people to be the best they can be. So just want to give you a little bit of that. So handling adversity, right? So the undeveloped mind, right? When bombarded with information and external stimuli, it quickly loses the ability to decide and the courage to act until the moment of crisis. So we know that. We know if we don't develop these guys mentally, that's what's going to happen. So the developed mind can part the shadows of chaos. We had workouts last year called chaos training. And we did that purposely. Coach Kelly wanted that. He wanted chaos. He wanted when we go on the road in front of 100,000 people screaming and yelling and all these different things. So we created chaos in the weight room with lights and music, the Valentine's Day lift. That's where all that came from, because we wanted to make things harder. We wanted to challenge the guys in a safe way. This is always done safely. This is always done in a way that's built up progressively, which I'm going to talk about later. But the developed mind will be able to handle those things, okay? And obviously the potential exists for if you're not developed, then the toughness of the individual is going to brittle, right? So the most mentally tough teams are able to sustain, right? That's the essence of what we're talking about here. The teams that are not mentally tough, will break down, no matter how much talent they have. The teams that are mentally tough can keep moving forward, right? Goes back to the quote. They can take punches to the face, so to speak. They can take the challenges of how hard it is here at Notre Dame academically. They can take the challenges socially back home, and they can keep moving forward and become champions. So that's why we utilize this so much as well. Believing in yourself when no one else does. I'm a huge guy in faith. I can talk here at Notre Dame openly about my faith, so it's one of the huge blessings about being here. But you got to embrace adversity. If I didn't do that as a young guy, I wouldn't be in front of you talking to you right now. If I didn't have God and believe that it was God's plan for me to be doing what I was doing, no chance of being here right now. All challenges come to you, and obviously, you know, from this piece of scripture here, Jesus calms the storm. Sometimes, as we all go through, we get a little anxious, a little anxiety. You know, I'll hear the Lord say in my ear, you know, have you no faith? You know, where's your faith, big guy? Like, the bullets start flying and you're losing your faith. So we talk about this with our players. We tell them that the Bible says to embrace everything, you know, not just the good, but the bad. And that goes back to me, this is life. You can't be discouraged by challenges. You got to learn to embrace them. So our Notre Dame standard, right? So I started out with talking about Coach Kelly's traits. So the Notre Dame standard on the left there, the attention to detail, the laser focus, having the great attitude, being gritty, being smart. What we did this year is we took the next column, brotherhood, championship mentality, team heartbeat, and the Notre Dame standard, and we created the workout, this year's Valentine's workout, based on those 4 principles. So we never get away from what we hang our hat on. We never get away from Coach Kelly's ultimate vision. You know, we're not just a flavor of the month program. This is what we believe in, fellas. You know, here's our, you know, our words. Here's what we do, because Coach brings them up all the time. But now, when we get in the weight room, we're going to have a station that's based on brotherhood, that's based on selflessness and accountability. We're going to have a station that's championship mentality, relentless effort, self-discipline, unwavering resiliency. We'll have a station on the team heartbeat. We're building the heartbeat of the team right now. Okay, this is a game day type workout, championship demeanor, how you walk around, how you carry yourself. And the Notre Dame standard, which was kind of what our this offseason was about. We had 40 guys on our team this year that had not been through an offseason, 40. And so we had to say to our older guys, you guys have to maintain the standard. We're not taking steps back. We want to keep taking the next step forward. You know, we tell the guys all the time, they don't automatically schedule playoff games. That's not how it works. We got to start over. It all starts over again. So we put that all together with the traits. A little video here for you. Kind of showing our guys' trait. It's a special place, man, you know that. That's why you came to Notre Dame. It's a very, very special place. Every day I come to work, everything I do away from here is to be a champion. Being a champion is an all-the-time thing, and we're training that today. It's all about process. That's where we are right now. We're in the process of building this team. What will this team be about? I can watch that video 1,000 times. And that's Ryan, our video guy, is unbelievable what he does. All the time I thank him. He has these videos before game day, and we're all like ready to go run through the entire earth for that guy. So you're my man, and I thank you. Awesome job. So now moving forward with the presentation, here's the things I'm going to touch on and how we fight through adversity. Give you a little X's and O's of what we do in the weight room, how we're football specific, how we compete, how we train for leadership, how we train the conditioning aspect anaerobically, how we train for speed work, agility training, and then our metabolic conditioning, our finishers, which really hits our oxidative system as well, okay? So weight room here first. In the weight room, we have 3 ways we train, okay? 3 ways we train. The high intensity principle, which is time under tension, okay? So if you think about a rep in the time under tension world, and you picture a guy doing a seated row. I'm sitting down, I'm doing a seated row. I'm gonna pull the weight. That's the concentric motion. I pull it in, okay? I pause it for 1 second or 2 or 3, whatever we did, what we want, okay? The isometric, and then the eccentric part of the movement, all the way down, we put a 3-second eccentric on it. Time under tension training. The reason why we like that style of training at times is it builds hypertrophy. It builds size. It builds strength. As you can see here, emphasizing the lower the weight. The muscle cell, what it does, it gets into a fight or flight situation. If you were to cut a muscle cell in half, split it in half, and look at the different muscle fibers and motor units. As the muscle gets more fatigued and you get more tired, you either set it down, flight, give up, or you fight and you go to another level. And so for us, what I've found throughout my career is that this is a great way to teach guys how to fight safely. We do a lot of this on machine work. You can also do it with free weights, but it is a little bit safer on machines. Or you can do it with single joint movements. But to get your guys to keep tension on the muscle the entire time without setting the weight down is why we do the time under tension, high intensity training. Maximal strength development. I'm an old power lifter, so I know how to get people really, really strong. I'm not bragging to you, but I squat over 700 pounds a long time ago. I benched near 500. I pulled almost 700. So I know how to do that. The problem is in the football world, when you only do that, guys can get stiff. They lose sometimes their lateral mobility. Now I've had guys do it. All right? When I used to do 1 rep max testing, we had the 700-pound squat, the 501 rep max. The problem is it's extremely dangerous. One wrong move with that kind of weight, obviously, we can't have. We can't get a guy hurt. I mean, knock on wood, I never want to do that, but I surely don't want to take that risk. So we're kind of in the 3 to 5 rep max testing protocols. But maximal strength development, for example, the squat, the bench, the power clean, the hang clean, we still utilize maximal strength even in the high intensity principles. For example, linear periodization wise, the 8 to 12 for a few weeks, 6 to 9s, 5 to 8s, you can do that as well. Okay, the body doesn't know any different. And then velocity-based training. Velocity-based training is something that we've always done, but here at Notre Dame, you have the most incredible resources on the earth, so we're able to measure velocity with our elite form systems. If you've ever been in our weight room, you know that every rack has an elite form system, which is a camera, and it videotapes our guys. It tracks the speed of the bar, how fast the bar is moving. And so what we do is we know through the research that it's not just enough to be strong and humongous, you have to be explosive and powerful. And so we also want to train the rate of force development as well. Through the high intensity, some of the research here, and you can do it on your own. But I always like to give a little background of what we do. We're trying to basically get more motor units as we're training. We're trying to call on more motor units on that fight or flight situation. As you strength train, you know, everyone's kind of heard of the Henneman principle. As you train, you recruit slow twitch fibers first. As the weight goes, as you start to get more fatigued, you start to have to go and recruit fast twitch muscle fiber and fast twitch motor units. So it ends up being that the type 1 and the type 2A, you start there, and as you go, you get all the muscle fibers, all the motor units, the type 2X. So for example, you get a guy in a leg press or a hip press and he starts going and he stops at 5. You've missed out on the muscle fibers in the adductors and the abductors, the glutes. I mean, I don't want our guys just saying my quads are sore. I want them saying my hamstrings are sore, my glutes are sore, things like that. When weight is lifted to momentary muscle failure, mTOR and protein synthesis are turned on. All right? If the increase in protein synthesis is more than muscle breakdown, which basically means you're not overtraining, but you're overreaching them, then you're able to get the gains you want. And so that's why it's really important to balance how much you're going till failure, how much you're going to high rep. We don't do it for every movement, which I'm gonna explain moving forward, but we do it for some. The back, okay? A hint here, a good fact about this training is your back can handle a lot more of this. I'm talking about rows, pull downs, pull ups, safe back movements. It can handle that a lot more than your pushes. Your pushes, you gotta be more careful there. And obviously squatting, you gotta be careful there with the high rep on the low backs. In the maximal strength development world, in this now, we want to obviously train the 3 parts. We call it the triphasic way of training. If you've studied Cal Dietz, he's got a book out called Triphasic Training. And basically all we're saying is we train 3 parts: the concentric, the eccentric, the isometric. So when we start an off-season program, week 1, our main lifts are squat or bench. We're gonna do 3-second eccentrics. Now some guys call for 5 or 6 seconds. That's an awful lot. For us, we're not quite there yet. I believe that's for a much more advanced lifter to do that type of eccentric work along with everything else that we do. So we found that the 3-second protocol is the way to go, but you can utilize this again on your squat, your bench. You wouldn't do this on power cleans. You wouldn't do this on Olympic movements, but you would do it on multi-joint movements. You can do them on single joint movements as well. So obviously the heavier the resistance is given, the more activation of mTOR. Our velocity-based training is the world that we live in. We want to transfer what we're doing in a weight room onto the field. And so typically everyone coaches a squat for a full range of motion, right? All the way up, all the way down. Well, what we found is, through the research, which says right here, okay, work done by Brian Mann and Jacobson, found that football players typically explode out of their stance at a mean velocity of 1.09 meters per second. That's our speed strength zone. So Coach Flint, who's in charge of our elite form work, will say, all right, Coach, here's what we got. We're gonna go 3 sets of 3 today on the speed squat at 40%, and then he will plug in the appropriate meters per second that we wanna move the weight. And so as the guys are doing it, they've gotta hit those zones. Now, as I said, those are very expensive, and in your world, it's hard to get. Even when I was at UConn, I couldn't afford to get a lot of them. So we use Tendo units. Tendo units are much less expensive. They're much easier to, they're easy to use. If you can't afford Tendo units, I still suggest you put this in there. You could have stopwatches and everybody go on your whistle. I know it's not the same, but it's a part of what we do. The research says you need to do maximal strength, the repetition, high intensity method, as well as velocity based to train the entire athlete. That's why we do all 3. When I was a young strength coach, I remember going online and reading one of these websites, a guy, Mel Siff, who passed away a few years ago. And people were vehemently arguing about, well, the Olympic lifting is the way, and this is the way it's being irresponsible to go till failure. And then the high intensity guys would rip the Olympic guys like, what are you doing? It's not safe. You're gonna, blow out their backs, their joints are. And I was always the guy that said, well, why can't you do both? Like, what's the problem with doing both? And so our philosophy doesn't center so much on, are we an Olympic program? Are we a high intensity program? No, we're a high effort football based program. And so we're gonna utilize the best that's out there in our way. But it's always, if you know the way we train, we never lose who we are. And I'm gonna kind of show you what we do here moving forward. This is a chart here of the zones that we like to train in the velocity world. So like I said, we live in the speed strength, 30% to 60. We never really go higher than 60, probably 50 or 55 is the most. Strength speed is another area. Peak power we'll get to at times. But what happens for us is as the heavier you make this weight, the guys will come up and they'll look at that elite form, and then I get a little nervous with how much weight's on their back. So I like to stay a little bit lighter with them. All right, so then we'll do like a speed squat where it's kind of halfway down and back up again. Or we'll do a rear elevated split squat where they'll come down with the weight and back up again. And that way, even if their eyes shift, it's not as dangerous because the weight is so much lighter, if that makes sense. You can also utilize velocity in close grip work and incline work. You just got to be careful with the pecs. Make sure you're trained beforehand. You know, I always tell people here, you know, to be explosive, you got to be strong. So, you know, for us, you know, and for you guys, you got to get these guys strong, bigger. But you can, as your guys get older, you can start to put some of this stuff in. It doesn't have to be every movement. It could be one movement of the day. It could be your first movement, whatever, however you choose to utilize it. I wanted to put this in because the Nordic hamstring curl falls into the time under tension world, okay? So this is some great research that we found, and people are always like, well, how do you prevent hamstring pulls? What's the secret? How do you do it? I learned a long time ago there are no secrets to it, okay? It's through sound, disciplined training. It's through proper warm-up. It's through proper recovery. It's through proper progressive overload. But this movement here, you can do very easily. Is everyone familiar with the Nordic hamstring? It's a negative only leg curl. It's where a guy's on their knees. You're holding the guy's ankles. He falls forward. We tell the guys 3 seconds, 4 seconds, 5 seconds. He comes back up again. But what this study basically says is once that Nordic hamstring was put in, the guy got stronger and stronger and maintained the strength. Once they took it out, you can see the drop that they had in their hamstring strength. And so you always have to do some hamstring work, in our opinion, no matter what time of year it is, or the hamstring starts to weaken. Now, you got to control the volume, you got to control the number of sets, you got to control the intensity, but this is something where it's very easy. If I'm a 10 rep guy, 2 sets or 3 sets of 10 in the off season, spring ball, I'm dropping those reps down to 6, maybe for my skill guys, my big skill 5, my power guys 4, something like that. So I wanted to also give you a little bit of how we're position specific or football specific movements, right? I mean, really everything you do in the weight room, let's be honest, is football specific. Demeanor, right? The atmosphere of our training. We don't just give guys a card and say, okay, go like a health club. I mean, it's coached. Like, you know, we're communicating. Coach Steiner is communicating, again, like I talked about in the beginning, with everyone staring right to his eyeballs about what's going to have to get done today, what the goal is, what the coaching cues are. So the atmosphere of what we're doing is like a football field. That's where it's really football specific. The tempo with which the guys move around. It's not, okay, I'm going to do a set and go sit down. No one's allowed to sit in the weight room. There's constant movement. It's an upbeat atmosphere. It's energy. It's like a practice. It's basically what we want. The flow, the structure. And so here are just some movements that we do for our alignment as we get into the training cycle. This is something we would do possibly week 4 or week 5. And so, whoop. How do we play this? Not gonna play. Any help? This one go? This one's going. Let's see if we go back. Can we show this one? This is a landmine. There you go. Thanks, Ryan. A landmine squat to press. Very easy for you guys to be able to set up. Put a barbell down in the corner somewhere. We have these little landmine tubes that we utilize. But awesome research talks about this movement for alignment is a great way to develop velocity, great way to transfer strength. As you can see that angle that he's going on, similar to an angle coming out of your stance. We like this for alignment as well, the alternate lunge, right? Knee coming over the ankle just slightly, a little bit of weight on the back under control. You know, we got to train in a unilateral fashion, but this is definitely one that we love to use with our linemen. With our big skill players, instead of using that landmine, we'll use a football bar and we'll do a squat to press with this one here. Back on. This is a great movement here, fellas. Squat to press, you know, all the way down, full range of motion, squeeze at the top. You know, again, safe. It's not super explosive there. So I feel very comfortable giving that to our linebackers, our tight ends, our running back type guys. And then in the lower body world, rather than have them step, I'm gonna do a single leg split squat with them with the weight on their back. Just a little bit of variation for them. right, for the big skill guys. And then finally with our skill players, a lot of what they do is single arm, single leg work. So we'll do a single arm push press. All right, we'll come down in a staggered stance, which is a lot of times what they play in, and we'll explode up with that weight. And then from a lower body standpoint, we'll do a Bulgarian split squat. We'll elevate the foot and just put dumbbells right at the side, and we'll let that knee come a little bit more forward over the ankle. So just a way that we can be football specific, position specific, but we still don't lose what we're doing. We still are staying true to what we do. Now, going into our competition world, why is competition so important? Going back to the traits, going back to Coach Kelly. Said he wanted competition, he wanted accountability. So we developed the SWAT teams, spring workout accountability teams, summer workout accountability teams, in-season workout accountability teams. That's where the competition comes from. Guys love it. Okay, everywhere I've been, they love it, especially here at Notre Dame. It puts more pressure on the guys. They look at it as, I got to compete in front of my peers. They love to look at the board and see the competition and what's happening. It's a great way to get the most out of guys. It's a great way to motivate, right? Going back to motivation. And so some of the stuff we do in the weight room, we utilize stuff at the end of the workouts, finishers. We'll do the velocity stuff and we'll measure that. We will do pound for pound work there. If we're doing vertical jump or broad jump, we'll compete in that in the weight room. Speed work, we line up our guys from fastest to slowest, and we'll have a line of guys, probably all wideouts, DBs, maybe one linebacker. We'll come out of 3-point stances. We'll come out of 2-point staggers. We'll get them on their bellies, whatever it is. And it's 8 groups, fastest to the slowest. And then it's all on the whistle or set hit or set goal. And we have a guy watching the first place winner and the last place loser. And we award points and lose points for speed. Agility training, which it's like our station setup of agilities. We have 8 teams, so we have 2 teams, 2 teams, 2 teams, 2 teams. They go against one another. They compete the entire time in a variety of basic cone drills, but it's an awesome way to get the most out of guys to compete. We have the first place winners. We have the last place losers. We compete in our mat drills, our conditioning, which we look at body language. We look at discipline, we look at technique, set position. Are the guys coming out correctly? We'll actually grade that as a staff. Conditioning, we'll give points for the top 3 guys, 10, 7, and 5, depending on what we're running that day. The discipline category, that is all about lifestyle. Did you go to training table and eat? Not just go, did you eat? Did you fill out your health and wellness questionnaire? All right, did you make your body weight goals? Did you go to your community service that you're supposed to do here at Notre Dame? We're a service university. Is your locker kept neatly? So we have different tabs in our Google Drive, and this thing has grown tremendously. Started out with, all we did was strength and agility. So if you're thinking about doing this, I would recommend just going weight room and speed. Just start out small and then start to add in these other components, because what we've built it into a monster, basically. You got a strength card, a speed, agilities, all these different disciplines. Jason Mickelson gives us information, training table. Our equipment guy gives us information on the equipment room and the locker room. So it's a really awesome thing we got. Academics, highly recommend this as a part of your off season. Here at Notre Dame and everywhere else, as we know, most of the guys are not going to go on to play in the NFL. So it's extremely important that their grades are done right. And as we know, as Coach Kelly always talks about, if you do well in school, you're certainly going to do great in football. They love football here. They love it. These guys go nuts on the football field. Right? Maybe some guys don't love school, but they still got to put forth the effort. So Coach knows if they put forth the effort academically, we're certainly going to get great effort on the field. And then strength, as I talked about. And so we put all these things together. And so we'll have a first place winner weekly that we give, could be Chipotle gift cards or Chick-fil-A or gear or good parking spots, or the teams that, we used to do the last place team would come in for an extra workout. What we've done now is there's a minimum point total. And if you don't hit the minimum point total, then we bring in, instead of it being more focused on losing, it was more about being a winner, right? And then academics will bring guys in if they have a certain amount of minus points there. So we keep guys focused on school here. But I don't know if you can be able to see this video. It gets a little blurry possibly, I don't know, maybe not. But this is some speed school stuff we do. You know, a lot of different ways that we compete. Here's some agility cone drills. You know, you can do things as basic as the L, you know, whatever you want. You know, there's so many ways you can compete, but my suggestion is to do it, you know, basic drills, so it's easy to be able to have a winner and a loser. And then as you get, you know, more into your reactionary drills and football-specific drills, you can get a little bit more nuts. But here's, again, different drills. These are obviously just a simple hoop drill. But what we have is we got an equipment manager there, or you can just have a strength coach keeping track of points. You can see here, you know, bag drills. You can easily do it there as well. Using the chute, you know, being football specific in terms of body position. You can utilize as well. And then all these matchups that you guys see, these are all preset matchups. So we'll take the time and set these matchups based on how they drafted their teams, and then also based on their ability. Sometimes it doesn't work out perfectly. Sometimes a guy, you know, might go against someone that he knows faster. Well, that's going to happen on the football field. You're not going to always have an automatic situation where you know you're going to win. You might have to fight and scrap a little bit. So there is some of that as well. Here's, you know, our starting left tackle here, Liam Eichenberg, doing an awesome job around the cones. And you want these big guys doing these drills. You want to move it. This is some of the way we compete in our conditioning work. You can see that guy out way ahead. We're going to give him 10 points for kicking butt. And then the second place guy is going to get 7. The third place guy is going to get 5. That's the big skill, all running at one time. Here, once again, a couple D linemen going. There's our quarterback doing some, you know, that's just a position, 5-cone drill right there. Fighting through adversity in our leadership training. So going back to the SWAT. So the SWAT action, right? Well, you're really developing leaders with your SWAT teams. I mean, you're basically, Coach Kelly said that he wanted to develop leadership here. And so our first year, he chose the 8 leaders. I didn't really know the players at all. And he, obviously, he did, chose those leaders, put guys on the teams, and it was set up that way. So you can certainly do it that way, but you want to make sure you have an even amount of guys. You know, 3 or 4 linemen, 2 or 3 big skill guys, 2 or 3 skill players. And so that's what the leadership SWAT team looks like. We had a draft year 2 and 3. When we have drafts, really is an awesome thing. You get the whole team in there. They're drafting guys. We have a draft board. It's based on speed, agility, but it's also based on lifestyle decisions. I hear guys saying, I don't know if I want to pick that guy because I know he's not going to go to class and I know he's not going to go to training table, so they don't get picked. And so it's always, coach wants to know who the guys trust. We want to know who the guys believe has their back, who has their 6s, if you're a military guy. So that's a huge way to do it as well. Leadership, as we know, it can't allow slack. Okay, it's got to be some that you hold each other accountable, but in a positive way. We're not looking for guys to call each other out in a negative manner. That rarely works. That rarely works anymore. It's always about what, you know, hey, I notice you're not going hard anymore. I notice the strength coach is getting on you. I notice the position coach is all over you. What's the deal? And so they hold each other accountable. It's a brotherhood. It's a family. And we talk about getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, which goes back to the title of this presentation, adversity. You know, leaders, I told the guys yesterday, lead. Right now, you're in the middle of spring ball. We're going to either lift or practice every day. Your bodies are tired. You're tired. You're going to class. Time to lead. Time to step up. No one's going to feel sorry for us. No one cares. No, I mean, we got to go on the road this year to Georgia. We got to go on the road to Michigan. We got to go on the road to Stanford. I mean, no one's going to feel sorry for us. It's time to lead. Time to start doing that now. Make your body weights now. And so that's part of what they've got to do. We talked to them about complacency being a killer. We're never satisfied here. Another way we develop leadership is in our mat drills. Our mat drills are basically, all on command. Set position, football position. Guys come out at one time doing the drills correctly, but the way we line them up is we have all our leaders in front. And so if the guys mess up a drill, the leadership has to do it over again. And so the accountability of that drill is huge for us because those leaders start to get a little bit upset when they have to keep going over and over again. And then leadership activity workouts, this is something you guys could easily put into your programs, is where we'll do a conditioning, and then the guys are tired. And I'll say, okay, all the SWAT leaders come to me, and I'll give them some basic calisthenic drills that you might think are the easiest things in the world, but because you said up, down, or down, up, and they have to have their eyes up doing it, they could get discombobulated. And so I got this from the Navy SEALs. They came and trained our team a few years back. And what those guys did is they watched how the leader of each unit led his group of guys. And so it's a really good way to teach leadership, to see who listens, to see if a guy can grab the attention of his players, if the guys that he's leading are listening to him as he's going. So in this video, you'll see some of that as well. So this one here are the logs, and you see some guys are wearing weighted vests. So we tell those, the guys that want to put the weighted vests on, you do that. It's your day to step up, so to speak. We think that's an awesome way too, because you got to always step up in football games and in life. Obviously, team tug of war, one that we all do and love. This is one of our players, talking to the team. This is a simple, army crawl, bear crawl underneath a tunnel. These are our quarter eagles when the guys are blown out and tired. It's a listening drill. They got to do it on command. Here's a sandbag relay. Here are the mat drills I'm talking to you about. See how they all have to be done together at the same time. Those four guys, if one guy's not snapped down in a football position, we would start them over again. And so that's why that's such a big leadership deal for us. If one of those guys waiting in the back doesn't explode or doesn't stay in his position, they're out. You can see here on the logs, if one guy decides not to push up, the whole team's going to suffer. Just like in football, one guy goes the wrong way on a play, one guy decides to not trust his teacher or not trust his teammates. Obviously, that's what happens. Here's our mat drills again. The guys waiting in the background, if these guys do the drill wrong, they would start over once again. They've got to sprint out 1,000 miles an hour, have a great finish. This right here, we went off campus and we did a team run where we had to work together and solve things. This is a team tire flip. So all these things, really don't require very much money, just requires time and effort. And, a lot of the tires I think we got for free, right? Thanks. For free. These are some boards we have up in our weight room, our Notre Dame effort board, our SWAT off-season competition board, and our individual leadership board. And so we have these up year-round. Everybody can see them. I talked a lot about the SWAT, the individual. We also compete by position, O-line, D-line, running backs, all those different things. The effort board is an awesome, I highly recommend you guys doing that. That's a way to subjectively rank your team from the hardest workers all the way down. Obviously it's subjective, but we meet as a strength staff and we go through who the hardest workers are. And it's one thing if they're the hardest worker for me, but we want them to be the hardest worker for Coach Steiner, for Coach Burris, for Coach Kanan, for Coach Wright. That's how you really find out what your team's about. Energy systems and conditioning. We have basically 3 energy systems that we train, the ATP, PC, and fast glycolysis. That basically is 0 to 30 seconds. So that's your 53s, your 40s, your 50s, your 60s, things we do in the weight room, your agility, change of direction. You start to get in the half gassers in that energy system. Obviously, you're incorporating maximal effort in the weight room, not quite maximal on the field at times. Sometimes you are, the 0 to 10 seconds, that's close to 100%. Your glycolysis system, 30 seconds to a minute and a half. That's your full gasser world, your 300s, your get the yards, zone running. Why do we love those things? That builds lactate. In order for guys to recover in between plays, you need lactate. You can't just do all the time, 50s and 40s and 20s and 30s. You need the ability to recover in between plays and strengthen the lactate in your body. If you watch football now, it's a team that's able to keep going in the third and fourth quarter with everything they got. It doesn't matter what you do fresh. And the oxidative system, we're going to get that a lot throughout our workouts. The heart rates are going to be high. We really get those in our finishers. We get those outside. As the guys get in better shape, we start to decrease the amount of time in between the rotation of our stations. Once again, I always go back to safety when we first start. We're 4-to-1 rest recover ratio. We start to bring that down as we go through the off-season program. The different tools we utilize to get that in the conditioning world, anaerobically, half gassers or full gassers, get the yards. What that is, we'll tell the guys, okay, linemen, you have 1 minute to get as many yards as you can running 100 yards down and back. And the minimum for get the yards for linemen is 280 yards. Big skill guys, the minimum is 300 yards. Your linebackers, your running backs, your tight ends. Skill guys, the minimum is 320 yards. Your wideouts, your DBs. Now listen, this is something we do like at a halftime in between our agility drills. This is something we do to kind of get the guys going in shape. Again, developing that lactate. We're probably not going to do this the last few weeks of the summer program. As we do that, we're starting to get more specific to what they're going to do on the field. Speed endurance work, 40s, 50s, 60s, game day sprints. Game day sprints are where we have them by power, by big skill. We blow the whistle, the power guys take off. Might be 30 yards, might be 40 yards. When the last power guy finishes, I blow the whistle. Big skill guys then take off. Once the last big skill guy goes, the skill guys take off. So those are game day sprints. Really good stuff as you get closer to the season. Speed training, linear, resistance. We've got sleds, we've got bungees. We have a variety of ways we train speed work. Our speed spool competition we talked about, our 10s. Acceleration, most of football is acceleration work, deceleration work. Agility training, when you talk about agilities, we start out general agilities, reactionary agilities, competition, the competitive like I talked about, and then of course football specific the last few weeks of the summer, okay? And that's where you can utilize what you guys do on the field in an agility setting. These are our metabolic finishers. I know I'm running low on time, but all those things on the left-hand side are all ways you can put into your program this video. This is a backward sled pull. Prowler push is a great one. If you have any prowlers, this is a speed sled, backwards speed sled. Those are farmer's walks. You can certainly use dumbbells. You can use sandbags. These are our treadmills. We utilize treadmills here. These are wood-weight treadmills at the end of a workout. Tug of war. These are just actually, bolt ropes that we utilize, or, the battle ropes. Again, the prowlers. You can take med balls, throw med balls and sprint after them. The tire flips that we like to do. You can buy a 2x4, a simple 16-foot or an 8-foot 2x4. Have 8 guys push a 2x4 together, working together. If you can't afford one of these bigger deals, you can have guys push plates. Pushing plates. You can have guys pull plates. There's the 2x4 one that they're all pushing together. I think we got 7 guys on there. You can see one of them's got the weighted vest on. The prowler push, overhead plate lunges. That's something you can easily put into your program. Lateral band X-walks, just a band across the body, laterally moving, lower and lower football position, what have you. These are boxes. This is a prowler put on, or a big log put on 2 prowlers, being able to push those things together. And so all the different ways that we put in that oxidative work, right? We're getting our guys in better shape. What are we doing here? I love that. We're working together. This is our Valentine's Day lift. We had it dark in there with red. This is a one-on-one rope pull. So that guy's seated while he's pulling a guy that's standing in. Obviously, up downs. This is a way that we compete. Last guy standing is the winner. Don't do this until your guys are in top shape. Okay, obviously this gets the heart rate up tremendously, as do these prowlers. And again, These guys have been training a long time. Okay, they're in really good shape. So putting it all together here, Coach Steiner put this together for me. This is basically how we put our program together. On Mondays, our focus is upper body. We're a 4-day split program. So what you're looking at here was the winter off season. So this is our heavy triple extension day, about medium intensity, medium volume. We're going to bench press on that particular day. We're going to balance that out with a pull. Anytime we do a bench press, a horizontal press, we'll do a horizontal row at times, but we'll also do a vertical pull, okay? But the volume starts out in the low 70s, and as we progress, we get all the way to the mid to high 80s or low 90s. Then that's where we focus on speed endurance or speed or agilities on that Monday. On Tuesday, that's a lighter dynamic effort triple extension. So that's a dumbbell snatch. If Monday was like a power clean, Tuesday's like a dumbbell snatch. That's our velocity work more there, that lighter stuff I was talking about. But we'll do a heavy squat there. We'll do a heavy squat on that Tuesday. So we balance out the heavy triple extension with the lighter lower body. Wednesday's all conditioning. Thursday, a little bit higher intensity. With the high intensity stuff I was talking about, the high rep stuff, that's our competitive agility day. Friday, we come into more dynamic effort with a higher volume lower body. That's more of the high intensity lower body stuff. This is just an example of our workout. On the left-hand side is the lifting, how we do that. On the middle is the run. On the right-hand side is just, and that should be in your packet, basically how we kind of rotate a competitive agility situation. This right here is very interesting. Basically, this is what this is saying, is you don't want to go over 10% increases throughout your off-season program. You go over 10%, you increase the risk. There's over 40% of injuries are associated with a rapid increase of resistance. So as long as you say between 5 and 10%, you're going to be okay there without getting guys hurt. Remember the 10% rule. Okay, I know I'm getting close to time. How do we integrate science and recovery? GPS, our relief form, our diary system, our questionnaires, our HRV, float tanks, Coach talked about, training table, health and wellness. We have questionnaires on their phones. You can certainly do questionnaires just on paper and have them fill those out every day. Sleep, the number one recovery tool we have. The number one recovery tool we have. Basically, this study is saying that adolescents need 8 to 10 hours of sleep. Okay, you're more likely to get injured if you don't sleep. You got to make sure you take care of your body. I know the old school thought was the less sleep makes you a tougher person. As we know, the more sleep you get, the better you become in everything that we do. This is a great slide here. We had one of our professors come and show us this slide. Basically, the one on the left is someone that's only slept 4 hours. The one on the right is someone who is alcohol impaired, and that is saying that the person that has alcohol impairment is able to do more than the sleep impaired guy, which is ridiculous. How many guys people are out driving their cars on 4 hours of sleep? It's kind of terrifying. So you can relate this back to your players and talk to them about the importance of sleep. Sleep recommendations, turning the cell phone off, turning the TV off. We're looking at different science right now that we want to utilize with our team as it relates to sleep recommendations and how to monitor and track sleep. Here are things that I want to put to give you that you can take home with you. You always utilize the 10% rule. Train all 3 parts of the movement. You know, incorporate your core work, your rotator cuff work, your correctives, things that guys need to work on into your workouts. Make sure you put that negative only leg curl in. And then things that I always had questions on about hamstrings. I thought this is pretty good in the off season. Stay between 4 and 6 total sets. Spring ball, 3 to 5 total sets. In the in-season, lower that volume to 2 to 4 sets, and you won't over-fatigue those hamstrings as you're going. Fighting through adversity, live in the moment, seize the moment. We tell our guys these things. Make it your will, have an indomitable will, an indomitable spirit. Be persistent, persevere, have endurance, have your legacy, and obviously build your life on the principles of the Lord. And I obviously want to thank my wife, our 2 sons. We're adopting Ricky right now. Our staff, again, I told you, there's no chance to be able to do this without you guys, without Ryan, without our head football coach, without Jason, our other staff members, our athletic trainers, our nutrition staff. The culture doesn't happen without, it's a complete team effort here, okay? And I know we're right there on time, but does everyone have 1 or 2 questions? Yes, sir.
Just real
quick, any pre-workout or post-workout meals that either you require here or would suggest to
Yeah.
athletes that we coach?
Yep. So pre-workout, you got to be careful with anything that elevates the heart rate. We don't want anything like that. But carbohydrates, any kind of carbs beforehand, your Gatorade, your bagels, things that are easy, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, little fruit snacks are basic things that they have. Something as simple as string cheese, chocolate milk. Post-recovery, you want carbs and a little bit of protein with it. So we've got Gatorade, Powerade, different things like that, meal replacement shakes, but the most basic thing, chocolate milk, peanut butter and jelly, you can always go to those things. I know everybody says that, but it really is the best thing. The key is not to miss the meal. It's to make sure that they're eating 3 square meals a day. Yes, sir.
At what age do you think is good for youngsters to start really lifting a good program and all that stuff?
Yeah, so like I said, my son's in 7th grade. I started strength training him last summer. So you can start strength training, but when we squat, it's the bar, it's 5s, it's 10s, it's nothing heavy on his low back. Same thing, we bench press. I train his neck, manual resistance neck training. We've got some machines in there that I let him utilize. So I think once they get to middle school, you can start to introduce those movements. I don't do any power clean. I did a shrug pull with him just to teach triple extension. But once he gets into high school, I get a little bit more intense. But to me, 16 years old, if he's ready and he says, Dad, I'm ready to flick the switch, that's when you can start giving him the real deal. Yes, sir.
You have an incoming freshman coming to Notre Dame out of the high school. What would you be testing, looking for, like how many times you get bench 225 or how many times you squat 50? What would you guys be looking for in that school?
We have a signing manual that we give the guys, but the biggest thing that I look for is just balanced training, making sure that he's balanced, that his back is just as developed as his front. Because a lot of times guys get overdeveloped in the shoulders and they have shoulder issues, or that their necks are developed. We didn't get any neck training talk, but neck is so important. Manual resistance neck, if you have neck machines, teaching them that they have to stretch after their workouts, making sure that they're used to doing mobility and flexibility work, even if it's the most basic static stretch. It's really good for them to do. But in terms of here are the numbers you have to have. Certainly we have standards if you come into our weight room and see what they have, but I don't expect them to be able to do that because I'm going to start them at a base level and work their way up. But we just want them balanced trained. We want them to have some kind of conditioning. We really want them to be mentally tough. We want them to understand what coaching and being coached hard is, that they're pushed no matter how great of a player they are, that they're used to being coached and pushed to be the best they can be. A lot of times that really helps us. Yes, sir.
What about, how your preseason very demanding, but you want your guys to have their legs under them for the first ball game? Or what are some things that you do to try to get your kids back fresh and get their legs back under them so they're not dragging in your first ball game?
Yeah, so with the summer, we start to kind of come down in our percentages. The last 3 weeks, we're in the 60 to 80% world. So we even start coming down a little bit in the summer training. Then they get a week off, a full week off. Then we go into training camp, and that's a progression that kind of acclimates them and builds them up. Then as training camp ends, we start, and Coach Kelly does an unbelievable job, and we look at all the different, science that we have, our GPS, basically their questionnaires, where they are, and we start to kind of decrease and get them more fresh by decreasing load at practice and giving them, a day off here and there or a full 2 days off. It's basically the volume that the position coaches put together, but Coach Kelly has a system of, when we're going to go really, really hard, when we're going to kind of go medium, and we're going to it's a teaching period. And so everything, like in the strength world, you kind of build here, you get to that peak, you hold, then you start to come down a little bit in your volume and start to get their legs back. And Coach Kelly does the best job I've ever seen of that within his practices, and then we try to emulate that within our strength conditioning programs. So it's just a matter of volume lowering and what you're doing in terms of what you're asking them to run. Everybody good? Well, I sure appreciate your time. It's an honor to be able to share this time with you. Like I said, there's no more important people than high school coaches and middle school coaches. I hope you had a great clinic. Please come back and see us again. We're going to be out of practice here, so hopefully we'll see you all at practice. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks, Coach Balis. You guys will see when you go into practice with the question about pre